Hello guys, welcome to MTech. This is your trainer Sari. So today our lesson is going to be on managing of hard disk management or understanding hard disk management. We have a lot of series or a lot of lessons coming on management of hard disk. This will probably be the first lesson on it, so we can name this one as part one or term it as part one of it. So kindly relax and sit tight. All your questions and your suggestions can be commented below the comment section, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, and also like the video if you really love it. And as I said, you can also put in a comment on your suggestion on the comment section. All right, so let's get straight to hard disks as in the management of it. So we know that we have two main kinds of hard drives, which we have the SSD and we have the hard disk drive. But this is when you have inserted it into your computer and you want to manage it, you want to configure it. So there are certain technologies or certain concepts that you have to get it before you can even properly manage your hard drives, whether being SSD or being an HDD or hard disk drive. So when we take the hard disk, if the hard disk get into the system, it can be in two configuration status or states. The first one is the basic disk. The second one is the dynamic disk. So if you connect your hard drive into the computer, we have two configuration status that the hard disk have to be in, or in some in some ways we can term it as types of hard disk. But this is not actually as in the physical hard disk when we are talking about SSD and ADD. This is when your computer is with your hard disk is within the system or your computer. So it's either basic disk status or it will be in dynamic disk status. Okay, so when we take basic disk, this is a type of disk configuration that holds standard partition such as primary and logical drives. So when your hard drive or your hard disk is inside the system, as I said, it can either be in basic disk or dynamic disk. When we take the basic disk, this is a type of disk that holds standard partitions such as primary and logical drives. Relax, sit tight. I will take my time and explain a lot of technologies, for example, primary and logical drives later on within our upcoming lessons. So basic disks logically or basically can only help you or aid you in terms of the creation of standard partitions. Then when we say standard partition, these are partitions that every hard drive is expected to have, primary and logical drive or primary logical partitions. So in terms of the operations of the basic disk, you can when your hard drive is in the basic disk status, you can create primary and extended partition. Now in the extended partition, then we create logical drives. Yes, all what I'm explaining right now, we will definitely do demonstration about it. So I just want you to understand before we really start doing one or two demonstrations about what I'm explaining. So don't worry, you get to see it and understand it better. So when you create an extended partition on the basic disk, within the extended partition, we create something called the logical drives. And the basic disk also enable us format partition. When we say formatting, we are talking about applying a file system or changing a file system, and also marking it as active, marking it as an active partition in that sense. All right, now let's move on to the next thing, which is dynamic disk. So when we say dynamic disk, as basic disk also is having certain features or properties, dynamic disk also has or have certain properties. So it's a type of disk configuration that holds advanced partitions such as spanned, mirrored, stripped, and RAID 5. When your hard disk, when your hard disk is inside a system, these two configuration status can be applied to them. So if you apply basic disk, what I said earlier on is what you are going to have. if you apply or if you change the status of the configuration status of your hard drive into dynamic disk, these are the kind of partitions that you can also create. So I'm sure in the lesson 2, the upcoming lesson, we will discuss spanned, mirrored, and strip and the RAID 5 partitions. So when your hard drive is in busy disk, these are the partitions that can be created. Previously, busy disk can only allow us to create primary partitions and external partitions, which in external partition we can create logical drives. But you can see that the dynamic disk is having more advanced partitions or more partitions compared to that of the basic disk. So very simple, straightforward. Operations of dynamic disk: one, we can create and delete simple span, strip, mirrored, and read 5 volumes on it. We can also extend a simple or expand volume. Extension of a simple as expand volume is the concept of you being able to take some capacity of or space from a different hard disk and add it to one particular hard drive. Then we have the third point is remove a mirror from a mirrored volume or break the mirrored volume into two volumes. Then the fourth point is to repair mirrored or RAID 5. And the last one is reactivate a missing or offline disk. So when you change or when you apply dynamic disk to your disk configuration or as your disk configuration, these are the operations that can be done on that particular disk or that particular hard drive, whether being SSD or HDD. All right, guys. So now let's move on to what we refer as disk partition. Disk partition, because I've been saying partition, partition, partitioning. So now let's look at what's the meaning of disk partition or partition style or partition scheme. So whether being basic or dynamic disk, in terms of partitioning, partitioning is simply defined as the logical division of your disk. That is logically dividing the physical hard drive, but physically the hard disk is intact. Biologically, the hard drive um, 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 has been divided or or you have rooms in them that it will enable you to keep data or to keep your files within it. These individual partitions are normally called volumes, which stand alone or they look like they are coming from separate hard drives, but they all come from the same hard disk. That is partition for you. Now, before you can partition or before you can divide your hard drive, you need to apply a scheme or a style to it, or you have to use a scheme or a style to the hard drive. So whether being a basic or dynamic disk, you have to choose one of these schemes or one of these styles so that it will enable you to do the partitioning or to do the divisioning in this sense. So the first thing is master boot record, that's MBR, and the second one is the GUID partition table, that's the GPT. So these are the two schemes or two styles of the disk partitioning that you have to apply when in terms of dividing your drive into logical parts or logical divisions. Now, when we take if you take this in particular, the disk partition style is a term that refers to the particular underlying structure of the disk layout and how the partitioning is arranged, what the capabilities are, and also what are the limitations. This is the partition style. I'm trying to explain the partition style. The previous one was about partitioning, but this is about partition style. So when we say partition style, partition scheme, what are we trying to say? We are trying to say that how your hard drive will be structured, the layout, how it will be positioned in terms of the logical division. So you are applying a particular style so that that style will be used to partition or to divide the hard drive in a particular or in a uniform layout. That is the meaning of partition style. Now let's jump into the master boot record. So master boot record, or MBR for short, is a partition style that contains a partition table that describes where the partitions are located on the hard disk. So this is another concept altogether when it comes to MBR, but we will just pause over here, then we continue with this particular lesson because I don't want to deviate from the actual thing. So when you have when your hard drive, the partition style for the hard disk is MBR. These are the things that you can do. You can create up to 3 primary and 1 extended partition on a basic disk using the MBR partition scheme. So if your hard drive is basic, that is the configuration status, or configuration, yes, status is in basic, and you want to do partitioning, and you apply MBR, or you apply master boot record. In this case, these are the things that you can do. You can only create 3 primary partitions and 1 extended partition. You get it? So one basic hard drive, which is in your computer. Now you want to do partitioning, and you have chosen a partition style of MBR, but the configuration status of that hard disk is basic. So in this case, you can only create, the system will allow you to create only 3 primary partitions and 1 extended partition on it. The extended partition can contain one or more logical drives. That is, after you have created extended partition, now you have 3 primary partitions there. Then the next partition will be extended partition. So you can't have, literally, you can't have 4 primary partitions. You can only have 3 primary partitions. Then your fourth partition, or your fourth division that you want to create on the hard disk, will be extended partition. Then inside the extended partition, that is where you can create logical drives. So a single partition cannot contain more than a single volume, And as I said, volumes are, or can be defined, or can be termed as partition that stands, or they feel like they are standing alone from the hard disk, but actually they are part of the hard drive. Now, what is the other partition scheme or partition style? That is the GPT. The GPT is an acronym, which there is GUID also over there, which is also an acronym, which is Globally Unique Identifier Partition Table, or GPT for short. So when you also use GPT partition style for your hard drive, these are the properties, or these are the features of it. So GPT partition style allows partitions larger than 2 TB. Yes. So if you have a hard disk which is more than 2 TB, the best partition style that you have to apply, or is being recommended, is GPT. So it allows partition larger than 2 TB. But talking about MBR do less. It do less, not more than 2 TB. Added reliability from replication and cyclic redundancy check. We have this thing called a CRC protection of the partition table. CRC also makes sure that most of the data that is going to be stored within the hard drive are being corrected, and also they are being checked. That's the redundancy check. That is the CRC protection. So when you choose GPT, this particular feature will be applied to it. GPT partition do not limit you to 3 partitions. Unlike the MBR, where you can only create up to 3 primary partitions. When you use GPT, you can create more than 3 partitions. You can create more than 3 primary partitions. Then there will be no need to create extended partition or logical drives. Here, using GPT on your hard drive, there's no need for you to create, because you can create more than 3 primary partitions. So there will be no need for you to create extended partitions. Then within the extended partition, you create a logical drive, which is not being applied when you are using GPT, but rather MBR gives you that. Now, so demonstration, let's go into our system and look at how we can check whether our hard drive is using GPT, MBR, is basic, or is dynamic. Then I will show you one or two configuration within the basic disk. Okay, so let's jump over here, then we get into that. All right, so we are here. So this is a virtual machine. This is not my physical computer. It's a virtual machine, a VMware, which I'm going to use for the demonstration. So on the virtual machine or on your system, we go to disk management, but we can run this command. We can run this command called the computer management. That is compmgmt.msc to jump out to disk management. So disk management is one of the tools that can be used for managing of your drive. Not only disk management, you also have DexPath. That is another disk management tool. That one is commands. You have to run it in command prompt, and then you enter the DexPath commands. But with the graphical user interface, we go for the disk management tool, the disk management tool in management. So disk management tool will enable us to configure, also view properties, and do one or two things within the on the hard drive. So when we get here, we see disk management on our left side under the tools. Sometimes your when you open computer management under here, you come to system tools, you expand storage, then you see disk management. So you click on disk management, then your physical hard drive or your physical hard disk will be shown over here. It takes some time because I'm using a virtual machine, so to take some little time before the hard drive load. If you have more than one hard disk, it's likely that all of them will show. And also, if you have connected anything removable, like any removable storage device, like a pen drive, it will also show. Over here, I've mounted an ISO image, so it's showing. Then I have only one hard drive. It's a virtual hard disk. So this virtual hard disk is disk 0, and this is basic, and it is 100 gig. Now, when you right click on here, when you right click on the disk 0, then you come to properties. Let's quickly view the properties of this guy. So we come to volumes, then we see that here we have disk 0. So the disk 0 is then the first hard drive inside my system, the first hard disk inside the system. If I have more than one hard drive, then they all show. So we would have seen something like disk 0, disk 1, disk 2 in that order. But because it's only one, it's disk 0, and here the type of the hard disk is basic. Let me zoom this guy here so that you can see it very well. Where are you? Okay, magnifier. So let me quickly get magnifier, then we'll use magnifier for that. Okay, so magnifier is not coming. All right, so let me continue. So over here we have a type which is basic, and status is online. Partition style is MBR. Then the capacity, as I said, is 100 gig. So when it comes to the volumes, let me take it over again. So you right click on your disk normal here. To view the properties of the disk, you go to properties, then you come to volume, then it tells you that the disk is disk 0, the disk normal, the type or the status configuration is basic. And in terms here, status over here, the hard drive could be online or it could be offline. So here it's talking about being online and being offline. Then we have the partition style, which is MBR for this particular, and then we have the capacity over here. Unallocated space also in reverse. Reserved space is also here. Now, you see there, when I click, you can also convert this guy to dynamic. But one thing that is not advisable is if your the DEX which you are about to convert to dynamic, if the DEX is holding where your operating system is, that is your operating system drive, which is drive C, you don't have to do that, because when you do that, there's no way you'll be able to do it cannot support the drive C, cannot support operating systems again. But Since there's an OS on it, it will work perfectly. But if you are trying to put a new operating system on it, you have to collapse everything on that particular hard drive. So what we are seeing over here is what we refer as partition. So this is the first partition and then the second partition. Now, fortunately, because I'm using a virtual machine, which is a VMware workstation, I will quickly add a hard disk. I'll quickly add a hard disk. Then we will use that hard drive to see how we can configure a basic disk partition, which I'll show you how to convert MBR and how to convert back to GPT. So quickly, if you are using a VMware workstation, we right click on the name of the virtual machine over here, then I'll come to settings. Then settings, I'll come down here and click on add here. I'll choose hard disk, then I'll go to next. So because my hard drive is on, I can only add a SCSI or a SATA. I can't add the NVMe, that is the NVMe, that's the M.2 SSD, and I can also add any old version of the serial, the old version of the ATA hard drive. So I'll choose the SCSI or SATA here. Then I'll come to next, create a new virtual disk. Then I'll come to start a single disk. Then I'll make this one 30 gig, which is okay. Move to next and go to finish. So, and after finish, I'll click on OK. So basically what I've done is that I have added another hard disk into my system. So if it was physical server or physical computer, you just open it and you add it, you slot in one hard drive into it. But this virtual machine, VMware Workstation, so VMware Workstation, virtual machine, virtualizations are very good, because just right now I've been able to add another hard drive into my system. Now, for the first time, if you add a hard disk from a different computer to another system for the first time, we have to do something called initialization. So now you see that the hard disk is disk 1, we have disk 0 here, but it's unknown and it has not been initialized. So quickly I'll right click on it and come to initialize disk. Then look at something. Whilst I tried initializing, now they are telling me that use the following partition style. So this is where you'll be able to choose from the beginning whether you want to make your hard drive partition style MBR or GPT. So it depends on you. So for the purpose of this lesson, I'll choose MBR first and click on OK. Then after that, now you see that the hard drive automatically is basic. So basic disk is the default configuration status, hard drive configuration status for Windows operating system. That basic disk is the default. So any hard drive that is within any which is running Windows operating system, is the hard disk is basic. Any hard disk which is running Windows operating system is basic automatically. So here I right click on the unallocated space over here is 30 gig, the black guy. I right click on it and come to new simple volume. This is creating of partition. So let's look at how to create a partition. So before you even create a partition, you can convert this guy by right clicking, simply right clicking on it and come to dynamic and say okay. So I've converted this hard drive to dynamic. I can simply also right click on it and come to GPT. Now I'll be able to switch in between dynamic and basic disk because there is nothing here. I've not created anything over here. There's no partition. So I'll be able to simply switch in between dynamic and basic. So I can go back to basic if I want to, because there's nothing here. The moment you create a partition, it's very difficult for you to switch back. If I convert it to dynamic, it's very hard for me to come back to basic unless I've deleted all the partitions over here. The same thing applies to the MBR. So I'm converting back to MBR. So this guy is now an MBR. I can convert back to GPT and I can just do it swiftly because there is no partition over here. So let's create one partition, then we will jump into our next lesson, which I'll take my time and we'll do more work over here. So I right click here and come to new simple volume. That is creating a partition. I'll move to next. Then this is the total size of my hard disk, which is around 30 gig. This is the total size of it. So I don't want to use all. I want to just use some small space of it. Switch. I will convert everything into um, um, megabyte, because whatever you type over here is megabyte. So I just want 2 gig, which is in megabyte. So that's 248. I'm using the decimal conversion. That's 1124. Not the binary, not the thousand. So 2 gig, that's 2 multiplied by 124, has given me this. So I'll move to next. Then the next page is to assign a drive letter for the partition that you're about to create. So I can say drive I, or you can maintain whatever is there, drive G. Then I'll move to next. So when I get here, there's formatting. So formatting simply means that you are changing or you are applying a file system, which will be another topic we will explain later on. So here, volume label, that is the name that you want to give it to the partition that you're about to create, which you can change later. It doesn't really matter. So let's say that this one is a simple volume. Then I'll choose. Don't forget that you always make sure this guy has been checked this perform a quick format, because it makes the whole thing very, very quick. So I'll click on next, then move to finish. So within some few minutes, few seconds, then we'll have our simple volume created over here with IG. If I go to this PC, let's get to this PC and verify. So this PC, when we come here, you see that we have a simple volume over here, which is drive G. Drive G. Yes, that's drive G. Okay, so folks, so that is the end of this lesson. I'll take my time and take you to the next lesson, and we will talk about dynamic volumes. Thank you for your time. Don't forget to like and also subscribe to the channel. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on notifications so that you can get any video that I drop, you get notification on it. Thank you very much.